Good now. All right, welcome to the April 7th meeting of the Design and Project Review Committee. My name is Johanna Neiden. I'm the Community Development Director. We do have a quorum, so I will call the meeting to order. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to participate electronically?
I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules to allow member participation electronically or by telephone.
Second.
All right, Michael Griffith, please call the roll.
Neiden.
Aye.
Gertis. Aye. Biggs.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye.
Eckersberg. Ingrid. Vanetta.
Aye.
Tristan.
Aye.
Oh, my word's not responding.
Mike.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
And Ingrid. Okay.
Okay. Ingrid, do you want to give us a thumbs up if you're aye? All right. So let's go on to the minutes. Approval of the meeting minutes of March 24th. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
Michael Griffith, please call the roll.
Neiden.
Aye.
Gertis. Aye. Biggs.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye.
Vanetta.
Aye.
Tristan.
Aye.
Hank.
Abstain.
Jones.
Aye.
And Eckersberg.
Aye.
Johanna, can you allow me to share my screen if you would?
Yeah,
Mike?
1 second. One reminder, what we'll do is as we go through these agenda items, I would ask that everybody remain on mute. And if you're not a member of staff, to kindly turn off your camera and then turn it on when your item is up. Because the way we like, since this is a pretty large group, the staff images then filter to the front for Zoom. So it's a little easier for people to see. So if you are not staff, kindly turn your camera off. And Michael Griffith, it should be good now. First item of business is 1700 Central Street, Sidewalk Cafe, 10 Mile House applicant submits to revise their outdoor dining cafe in the B1 Business District and Central Street Overlay District. So whoever is on for 10 Mile House, if you would like to walk through what you're proposing to do, and then we'll give some staff comments. And then if you have public comment, I'll take it after each of these items. Please send me a message in chat or put your hand up and we'll do that for each item. Thanks.
Hi, this is Fred Gale from 10 Mile House. So what we're proposing is to put a patio on the grass parkway there in the picture that you have in front of you. We would put semi-permeable pavers in place and then put gratings around those trees that are consistent with other grades that the city is using. And then we would incorporate some string lighting to light the area. I think that's it. It's relatively straightforward. So I don't know if you have any questions, but.
Are there any staff questions or comments?
I have some questions for you. It's Michael Callahan. I'm the city arborist. So looking at the plans that you have, you're looking to put permeable brick pavers, but those trees right now, most of the root system is going to be within the first probably 14, 16 inches of soil. So what type of impact do you see having on the trees at this point in time?
That's a good question. I can't answer that. So I probably would have to work with you or landscape, or we might have to come back and readdress it. I don't have an answer for it. And I don't want to make something up.
Okay. From another question regarding, the Public Works Agency. So we have to do snow removal down the street. And there's really no place for us to push the snow on that side until we get past farther south into the, past the driveways there. Who would be handling the snow removal? Where would the snow be going for trying to clear this off in the wintertime?
We would clear the snow on the pavers. Is the question, where would we put that snow?
That's correct. Where are you planning on putting it? Because you can't put it in the street and there's no other place to put it.
Don't know the answer to that as well. We would either have to maybe shrink the size of the patio. So maybe we leave the south end of what we're proposing and have that as an area for putting snow, and or possibly partially at the north end. But I don't want to obstruct, not that people would be actively using the bike racks in the winter, but we could put it there as well.
And another question regarding it, just kind of looking for it, who's responsible for the upkeep of the brick pavers and everything over time? Because
That would be us.
that would be you?
Yes, that would be, yeah.
Because what are your plan to maintain them? Because if the tree roots grow larger, they're just going to buckle that. How would you maintain it without trying to alter the grade?
Again, you're asking me questions about tree roots that I haven't considered, so I can't answer that question. But that's a good question. But, I mean, maybe that I don't know the answer for it. I don't know if you have any suggestions. I'm happy to consider them. What we were trying to avoid, I think, we had proposed this project a few years back. That particular issue didn't come up, but we could relocate the trees, but that would be expensive and disruptive, which I don't think we want to do, but that's an option.
Okay, yeah, I'm not trying to relocate those as
Yeah.
slim to none.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any more questions because I just don't know where to go with it at this point in time. Then
I don't either. I'm sorry. I sent this package around preliminary before this, was hoping to get some feedback so that we could have addressed that prior to this. So apologies for that. It just.
So Michael, is it possible that the applicant work with you to possibly create some more landscape area around those trees for tree impact and possibly snow removal? Work with you next week, and we bring this to Dapper next week for review?
that'd be fine. Well, my biggest concern is the trees and losing root zone area. Knowing that 90% of the root zone is going to be underneath the canopy of the tree, and by covering over it, even with permeable pavers, it's going to be extremely detrimental to the health of the trees for any type of long term. And that's my biggest concern is we're taking a design that's current and then trying to make something that's not going to be suitable for the trees. It's very hard to work with the trees in this situation without it just having so much adverse impact on it that it could ultimately just kill the tree at this point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm more than willing to work with whomever, regarding this,
Can I ask a question? I mean, I'm looking out the window, one of the restaurants, and there are trees on paved sidewalks. So were those trees put in after the sidewalks were paved? Because they're, other than, a 2-foot perimeter around the tree, it's all pavement.
Yes, those are tree wells. So a tree well, when it's put in, is different than trying to come in and then create a round one. So,
Got it.
putting a tree into a situation instead of trying to change the situation later on is
Sure.
much more desirable.
Okay. Makes sense. Good questions. So let me consider them, and if it's all right, can I shoot you an email and set up a meeting to discuss, to see if you have any ideas?
Definitely. That's no problem. Feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
One of the concerns that, this is Laura Biggs, one of the concerns that I was hearing from staff as they were looking at this was just the overall size of the patio. That's very large and it eliminates a lot of green space, which of course has an impact on the trees as well. I'm wondering if there could be some consideration for shrinking it a little bit, maybe putting it between the trees, but allowing the trees to have more space on either end of the green space. And also, this does not include the Sidewalk Cafe that you previously operated. If you're losing space by shrinking this patio, can you make it up by adding in the tables that you operated on the sidewalk last year?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we could shrink the size of the patio. I mean, if it becomes so small that it's, what you're going to get 8 people on it, whether that makes sense to proceed or not. But I think shrinking it is certainly a possibility, for the sake of the trees as well as snow removal. And to answer your specific question, yeah, I mean, this doesn't preclude us from still putting sidewalk seating in. One of the reasons I want to do this is that most of the seating that we're allowed, sidewalk seating, is along Central Street there, and we've got a bus stop right in front. It's an extremely busy street, and it's just really not that pleasant of a sidewalk atmosphere. And clearly having something in this parkway would be just much more pleasant and better for our business. So particularly with the growth in outdoor seating and COVID and all those things, this would be a nice addition. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Did you ever consider just doing like tables in the part, not necessarily paving, but just doing those? What I'm seeing is those, they're hexagonal shaped tables just on the grass surface, and maybe even doing one of like the parklets to build out on the street.
Sure. I mean, we could. That's a fine alternative. When we are allowed to put seating right now in the grassway, and we can certainly do that and continue to do that. I mean, there's some pitfalls in that, just in what it does to the grass and when it rains and all those kind of things. But yeah, sure, that's a fine alternative, for sure. So I'm not absolutely stuck. I'm putting pavers down, or maybe there's a type of paver that we could put in that's the depth requirements are minimal, and it would allow grass and such to continue to grow through it. So, I mean, I'm open to other alternatives. I'm not stuck on this notion. So,
Well, why don't we move? It sounds like you're going to come back. Why don't you talk? Unless there's any other comments, why don't? Sounds like you're going to talk with Michael Callahan, and Gary can continue to help shepherd some of this on.
sure.
Maybe think of a couple alternatives. I think we've been supportive of using the actual street for things for dining areas. If that's, we have, there's a fee associated with that, but that, you have some nice paved surface right next to the space, and then you preserve some green space maybe for some additional, working with you to, and that might end up even resulting in more tables and space for your outside dining. And people seem to have no problem eating in the paved street space. So we can work on that. So is that good to come back in the next at the next meeting and keep figuring this out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get with Michael and or Mike and see if there's a way to resolve the tree root issue and preserving the trees. And if there isn't, then maybe the answer is we just continue to use the grass. And I've been really appreciative that the city has accommodated that. And then it's just kind of a regular maintenance of that grassy area.
We
Okay.
have
Great.
allowed, Johanna referred to it, but we've allowed businesses to use the parking lane essentially, even though no parking is allowed right here, with the addition of concrete barriers around, which you work with the city to arrange. And there is a fee for that. And that fee is probably a lot less expensive than installing paver blocks.
Sure.
But I would encourage you to utilize the space that you previously used as well and kind of make one submittal, just making sure that you keep the 5-foot clear for ADA access on the sidewalk so that you kind of see the whole of the sidewalk cafe areas that you're talking about having.
Yeah. So the sidewalk cafe that we run on the north side of the building along Central Street, those tables are actually, which is on the side of survey, they're actually on the building's property.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and I think
All
it's,
right.
yeah.
So
Anyway,
let's move on. I'd like to move on. It
Okay.
sounds like there's more work to be done off meeting because we have a couple other items.
I just,
So if you have any,
Johanna, I'm sorry
Yeah,
to
no, do
interrupt. I just wanted to make one quick note before we moved on. There was talk about with snow removal and placing it in the bike racks, and I just want to make sure it's clear that that's not acceptable to place in the bike racks. Although I do know that sometimes property owners and businesses will have the snow trucked out, and so that's something that you can consider as well.
great. Thank you.
all right. So why don't we just make a motion to continue the item to a date uncertain based pending additional review of the project.
I will make a motion that we continue the item until there can be further changes to the project.
Second.
All right. Michael Griffiths, please call the roll.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go.
Thanks, Fred.
Nyden,
Aye.
Gertis,
Aye.
Biggs,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Eckersberg,
Aye.
Vanetta,
Aye.
Tristan,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
We'll attend to that one at a future meeting. 1601 Sherman Avenue, preliminary and final review. Connor Poor, applicant for building permit for exterior alteration to an existing 7-story office and retail building, the Fountain Square building in the D2 downtown retail core district.
Joanna, hi. It's Rich Clowder from DLA Piper. I'm joined by Jeff Shapak, Connor Poor, and Jacob Waller from Shapak Partners. They're a very prominent Chicago-based developer. They are redeveloping 1601 Sherman. It's an as-of-right project. However, we wanted to get your input and receive your feedback on some exterior alterations for Fountain Square. We think we've done a pretty good job of addressing staff concerns to date. We've also received comments from Bird Friendly Evanston, and we're pleased to speak to you a little bit today about what we've been able to implement by way of modifications at their behest. And without further ado, let me turn it over to the developer, and they will give a brief presentation, after which we'll be happy to receive your input.
Thank you, Rich. Jeff Shapak on behalf of ownership. I don't know who's controlling the screen. I know I'm not. So if I can just say next slide, please, that would be awesome. We're looking at what's known as 1601 Sherman Avenue. We also refer to it as 1616 Orrington. And that's only because our new office entry address will be at 1616 Orrington. And the building itself has always been known as 1601 because that is where the retail was located on Sherman, which will continue to be in that location. I'd love to move actually through a couple of slides to get to floor plans and then come to the building facade, if that's okay. Go a few more just to the floor plan, and then we'll come back up to all of the renderings. Perfect. That's it. The plan on the left is the ground floor. This is consistent with what we showed to Dapper at a preliminary meeting a number of months ago. Retail tenant A will have 3 sides to the building. Retail tenant B will have 2 sides to the building. Their primary entrances as planned to date will be Sherman, although our retail A tenant has told us that the Orrington entry will also be very important to them. Tenant B will also have the ability to do an Orrington entry. And then lastly, in the upper right-hand corner of the ground floor plan, you'll notice an office entry with an office vestibule. Please note that that elevator core is a new elevator core. We are replacing an existing core that was there, but we are moving, and let me see if I can draw on your plan if that's okay. We are moving the existing elevator and entry from this location back to here. And we're doing that for a number of reasons. It's allowing us in this plan to have a much cleaner floor plate for office on the floors 2 and above. And it's also allowing us to take what we felt was not a positive for Sherman, which was basically a blank wall for a huge section of Sherman Avenue for this building. And instead, we are now making it storefront for our retail tenants, which we think is a better use for Sherman. And with the building directly across the street, which I believe is 1603 Orrington, we think an Orrington address for office, especially again with the building to the north of us, makes much more sense, and preserving the Sherman facade for specifically for retail on the ground floor. As it relates to the upper floors, which is the proposed office floors, we are merely just cleaning up by demolishing out all of the old tenant finishes or fit out that they had built over the last maybe 20 or 30 years. And we have now vacated the entire building, so there are no tenants left in the building. And under our demo permit have begun our work demolishing those spaces and cleaning them up. So that way, when we have our building permit, we can start our principal work to refinagle or reconfigure rather the core and remove the existing core that's there today. If you could please, could we start at the slides above to talk about the facade? It is our intent, and this was something we talked about in greater detail on our original Dapper presentation, is we did not think it was appropriate to file for a demo permit and tear a building down at this location. We think this is an incredibly unique site, an incredibly unique building. And by cleaning up the facade, for example, by refinishing all of this limestone and by cleaning up the storefront, both at the base, which has been obscenely redone in just very bad ways for way too long. We're very excited to clean all of that up, and as well as our glass, and make this the building that it should be in a location like this in Evanston, and a building that is so visible to all of Evanston. The most major change, other than cleaning up an eyesore, in our opinion, is the rooftop, of which we are proposing adding the glass parapet wall. And that is a glass parapet wall, which will be new glass. And when we get to the end of the presentation, that is a place in which we are proposing to add bird glass, and are grateful. I believe Leslie is on this call, and it was Leslie who has been in touch with us and with our council on giving us some advice on things that she has been very kind to offer up ideas of things that we can do. Something that I think is really important to note, and we're happy to start sharing a screen of ours because we have some updated renderings. We did make one mistake in this rendering that we'd like to call out. And that mistake is these trees, I guess we could only dream are that large. They're nowhere near the size that we unintentionally drew them. We actually have photos from this morning. The trees go to right about there. And we have photos of the existing trees, and we've updated our renderings to follow what those trees actually are. And it really was Leslie who pointed out that the reflectivity of those trees in the glass wouldn't be good. And we were like, oh, that's actually a really good point. And then we discovered the trees are not there at that height. So we don't believe that that will be an issue in the glass. And again, we're happy to share with you updated renderings as well as an image from this morning of where those trees are at our building. In fact, looking back, the trees are kind of hilarious. It's almost like redwood forest in California because they are enormous in this rendering. If we could go to the next image, please, or next rendering, please.
I was gonna say, Jeff, if anybody on your team wants to share their drawings, I can stop sharing.
Sure. Can we do a quick share, Connor? Can you and Jake pull up what was created today to show where those trees actually are?
And then Jeff, if you want to finish up in the next couple minutes, then we can, I don't anticipate a ton of questions since everyone's seen this and you're in the final stages, but then we can keep going. So feel free to wrap up whenever you're ready.
Great. Those are more accurate to what the trees are today. Connor, can we switch back to, and then a photo of where the trees are today? Oh, sadly without their leaves, but that hopefully is coming back soon with the weather. If we could switch back to Michael's, and I can wrap up. Great. If we could just go maybe 2 more down and I can wrap up right now. Both of the facades showing the new storefront. And lastly, if we can get to the one that shows the fritted glass to meet standards for new glass and bird. I think it's the last of our presentation. It's the next one, I think. There we go. Using the 2x4 rule as it relates to a pattern in that glass. And again, we're grateful for the feedback that we were given. There were some other things that I won't spend time talking to you guys about. We did talk to Leslie in email about of different things that we can do to also further mitigate any issues with bird migration pattern. Lucky for us, this building has been here since before I was born and is staying in its current condition, its current height, etc., with the exception of the added bird glass up on the top floor. Unless anyone has questions, I'll stop talking.
I think there were some questions or comments from Bird Friendly Evanston. Is Leslie here or somebody else want to comment?
I am, and I so appreciate. Yes, I so appreciate all the steps you guys have taken, and I would love redwoods in Evanston, but I totally appreciate your understanding that the trees are actually sized down. So all of that sounds great. To the extent that there are planters outside, I hope you keep an eye on that. But I really appreciate your steps to avoid bird deaths. And I just want to also mention the corners. We're cleaning up the glass, so even though this is an existing building, it might it may both create more collisions because we're cleaning it up, but then in addition to that, it's kind of emblematic right downtown in Evanston, and so we would just hope to avoid collisions right in the center of Fountain Square here. So the corners are the other thing, and you can kind of avoid that perhaps by just reducing the see-through aspect of the corners. I'll be quiet, but I do appreciate all the steps you guys have taken.
Thank you, Leslie.
Great. Any other comments, Chad, or staff-wise?
Just a couple comments. You had mentioned 2 separate addresses here. So for permitting purposes, if you can be consistent with the 1601 Sherman address so that we have all permits under the same address, that would be appreciated. And then also we created a construction management plan for this project. A couple of the items in there was photo documentation of the sidewalks in the parkway. So if that can be done, so we just want the documentation of the existing conditions. So if those photos could be sent to Ingrid Eckersberg, and you can copy me on them prior to construction activity starting there. And then the last thing is for the protection of the Fountain Square Monument, that should go to Dave Stonebeck prior to any protection being put in place for approval. Okay.
Thank you.
I had a concern also. One of the comments that we've previously given was to replace the sidewalk along Orrington for the length of the building in order to update it to more of the city standard. And it appears that you are not including that in the project.
That's correct. We're not affecting that sidewalk at all. It actually, in our opinion, would make it inconsistent with the rest of Orrington. I had met with the mayor maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and he told me the history of Sherman having been redone and Orrington was not redone. Furthermore, I believe that the Fountain Square redo includes the same very condition that you're referring to on Orrington, but we're not touching that sidewalk and don't believe that it would be our responsibility to completely rip up a sidewalk when we are not asking for any relief in this project or any financing or anything. Why that would fall on us, we don't think that's our responsibility to replace an entire sidewalk.
In the past, when there's been significant rehab of buildings, and I'm thinking there's a bank that went in on the southwest corner of Sherman and Clark, I think. The properties have generally updated the sidewalk, and I think it's particularly odd because whether or not you're substantially impacting the sidewalk, you're changing your entrance to Orrington, and the existing sidewalk is definitely harder to maintain than the new city standard is. So I would think that that's something that becomes an appearance issue for you.
We like the sidewalk the way that you guys designed it originally on Orrington. It's consistent all the way up Orrington.
So Laura, what would you like to see happen?
It is completely consistent with how we've done it in the past, where there may be a section of the sidewalk that has been replaced with the newer standard, particularly when you're basically working from the end of the block. And I realize Fountain Square is the true end of the block, but I think that this is the commercial end of the block. So I would prefer to see the sidewalk included in the project. I think that there is no issue, and I'd have to actually go look at the addresses, but this has definitely been done by other businesses and generally works to make a much cleaner entrance for the businesses and works to generally update our infrastructure as we go forward.
Well, and I would also, I mean, something to think about for the permit holder here is when the city updates the sidewalk, it's pretty disruptive. And if you're going to disrupt your operations and you have a retail tenant there, doing it now and making the investment is likely to save you some challenges down the road too. So it is to your benefit as well, because when it's torn up, it's on a city schedule. It may not, the street may be torn up and then we get to it next week. I mean, there's a process here, but if you do it now, you're in control and you don't have a tenant that's affected. Or when we do it, everybody who walks into the building on Orrington is affected as well. So that's a major, you talk to any of the other
Do you
people
guys
downtown,
does Evanston want to redo all of Orrington now while we're under construction? We don't take issue with that.
That is not currently in our capital improvement plan.
It's actually.
You want to pay us to
either.
update all of Orrington right now, we can do that probably, but.
Okay. I mean, I'm not worried about the retail tenants because their primary entrance is on Sherman. So it would be the office tenants, but I think that that's going to impact every single building on Orrington. It isn't like it uniquely impacts us that you decide to redo all of Orrington one day. I'm sure when it happened on Sherman, there were close to 100 tenants who were impacted by the redo of a sidewalk. And also one other thing to note is we do have an entrance on Sherman for our office tenants. So arguably all of office, all of retail during your work, we might actually be the ones who can help you where other buildings complain that they can't seem to get across the sidewalk. We'll probably be the one building that won't complain as much because we'll have a way to get into our building for both office and retail during that work in the future.
Rest assured, somebody will complain. People always complain. It's the way they've always walked. It's just, we understand that that's the nature of the thing. So, why don't let's do this. Why don't we put Laura, if you want to add a condition to further study the cost and put considerations for replacement of the sidewalk without a requirement, but consider that we work with the applicant to study this. Because I think there's also, we do have trip hazards as well. So pavers are not the pavers that are there, we do have concerns, and we do get issues with having to reset them due to trip hazards. All right, any other comments on this from staff? All right, otherwise, is there a motion?
I'll make a positive recommendation for preliminary and final review with the condition that the sidewalk costs be investigated by Public Works.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Nyden,
Aye.
Gertis,
Aye.
Biggs,
No.
Callahan,
No.
Eckersberg,
No.
Vanetta,
Aye.
Tristan,
Aye.
Hank,
Aye.
and Jones.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 ayes and 3 nays.
All right, motion passes. All right, next up, 2021 Lee Street, 100 Gray Avenue, recommendation of ZBA. C.E. Niehoff applicant submits for major zoning relief for a 1-story, 18,000 square foot addition with a 5-foot rear yard setback where 20 feet is required in the I-2 General Industrial District. ZBA is the determining body. Is there somebody on for C.E. Niehoff?
Yeah, Rich Clowder's here again, and Sue, Rob, and Josh, I believe, are here, although I don't see all of them. Rob, do you want to pick up where Johanna left off and just introduce the project? She stated obviously the obvious, which is that we're planning an addition, and that will require us to go into the rear yard setback. Thus, the request before the zoning board is to get relief from 20 to 5 feet. But Rob, do you want to sort of place this in a broader context briefly, and then we can dig into the design? Rob, I think you're on mute. We don't hear you. Same problem. Is it just me, or are others having a hard time hearing Rob?
I can't hear anything. Rich, do you just want to?
Sure. Is Dan on? He's probably more familiar with the design.
Yeah,
Dan,
I'm right here.
You want to talk to the Dapper about the design features here?
Sure.
This is a good one to land on, this slide.
Yeah, actually, maybe we could go. It's a fairly complicated campus, let's just say. Maybe we could go back to get back up to the surveys. One more back up, please. Yeah, there we go. So this is kind of the existing conditions. I don't know if people know this site. It's very far west in the city. It consists of a number of parcels that were purchased over time, and currently the existing campus consists of 3 separate buildings that you see here, and they're interconnected with the narrow links that you can see between the middle building and the one to the right and the one to the left. They have spread their manufacturing operations out over these 3 buildings. And they are looking, in the broadest terms, I do believe that Rob is going to try and call back in, and he can speak to the particulars of the way this works internally for them. But they are trying to create a better workflow by locating one of their key departments more centrally in this campus. So the area that's in question is directly above or north of the center kind of square building that you see in the middle of the screen. That's currently occupied by the parking lot there. One thing that has happened very recently is that if you see just up and to the left from that center building, there's kind of a notch in the property line where the old railroad right of way carries through. They recently just purchased another lot that is essentially the extension of that notch to the north, all the way to, believe it's Brown Street, and that affords them a lot more parking. Which would essentially offset the parking that they would be losing by replacing the parking lot that you see there directly above or to the north of the center building. Why don't we go down to the next slide, please? There's Rob. Just very quickly, the next slide is that's the additional the parking lot. And if you don't mind, maybe we just keep going past this slide to there's a drawing SP1-3 that shows a plan, a site plan. One more. That's the existing conditions with the additional parking drawn in place. And then this one here, that just a little bit further down, please. One more bump on your mouse, Michael. Oop. A little too far.
I suspect because this is a really big packet, it's a slow scroll today.
It's getting hung up. Sorry, Michael, can you pop up just one more a little bit, please? There we go. I think that's probably good enough. So you can see the three existing buildings on the campus, and they're rendered in the diagonal hatch. The crosshatch directly above that center building represents the addition. And again, you can see that it's centrally located in the campus. It's for the electronics assembly floor. And so a lot of the parts are being worked on, and kind of the raw materials, let's just say, get created in the other two buildings. And then everything comes to the center place where the alternators, which is the main, which is the object that they're producing, gets assembled and put into place. So that's a very key operation. The existing build space that they're in now is low. It's really not very well suited to the work that's being done in there. So they're looking for a high bay space, more or less in the middle of the campus, that will allow them to create a workflow that really will help them be much more efficient internally. Rob, I see you're back on. Do you want to add something to this, to what I'm describing? I think he's still having hard times.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we have a lot. We're going to lose a lot of people at 3:30 for another meeting, and we have one more agenda item. So I want to see if there are any staff questions. Maybe Rob wants to message you if there's things he wants to add. Any staff questions?
I had a question.
Comment?
The parking lot that you're adding, there's already an existing parking lot that fronts onto Greenleaf, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's paved, but I do believe it's not striped. So the stripes in the layout that you see there is basically new striping that would organize that parking lot.
Okay, so your frontage on Greenleaf Street, there is no public sidewalk along Greenleaf in that area, but there is public sidewalk to the east. And so I would encourage you to, since you're doing some major construction anyway, to extend the sidewalk along Greenleaf at least to the limits of your property.
Okay, understood.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So do you know how many total spaces are affected, are going to be affected by where the new building is going to be placed, and how many new spaces you're going to be providing in the new parcel that you're acquiring? And then how many more additional employees will this facility now employ, and how many more vehicles do you anticipate?
I don't know of any additional employees being added. My understanding is that this is just an internal reorganization. And in terms of the number of spaces, My apologies, I'm just going through the numbers. I didn't have them memorized. We were going from 339 parking spaces to 375. So it's a net add of 35, 36 spaces.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, anything else, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I just want to mention that the stormwater control will have to be provided for the new building.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we're kind of still in the preliminary stages of design, but we understand that the stormwater is going to be an issue. We are poised to address that.
I'll make a motion for a positive recommendation to ZBA with the condition that the addition of public sidewalk on the south side of Greenleaf bordering the property be considered as part of the construction.
As a condition of the variance. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Michael Griffith, please call the roll.
Nyden,
Aye.
Gertis,
Aye.
Biggs,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Eckersberg,
Aye.
Panetta,
Aye.
Tristan,
Aye.
Pike,
Aye.
and Jones.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This will be at the, which CBA meeting will this be at? Is this the one coming up? The April one was noticed for that?
Yeah, we're scheduled to be at the April 20th meeting.
Great. April 20th is when this will next be heard. All right, next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Record Place 2116, 2120 Ashland Avenue, 1625 Payne Street, / 2147, 2149 Dewey Avenue. Recommendation is ZBA. Kathy Lichtenstein, applicant submits for an expansion of a special use permit for a daycare center, domestic animal, and a kennel. Record Place originally approved by ordinance 84018 and the MXC mixed use zoning code section 6-13-4-3. City Council is the determining body. Kathy, are you on? Would you like to give us the less than 60 seconds review of what you'd like to do? And I would only offer this as less than 60 seconds because we've had you before Dapper many a time for your various expansion plans. Maybe there's no Kathy. I thought that I saw her on.
Hello?
Hi, Kathy. Do you want to
Can
give us
you hear
a quick?
me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay, sorry. I currently operate in half the building right now, and the other half of the building just became free. So I'm in a contract to purchase the building. So we are looking to build an agility center within the building. So we'll have a daycare, boarding, kennel, and agility center. And really, there was no outside work. Eventually, we'd probably work with you to upgrade the facade, but all the work will be internal in terms of putting on a floor, putting in walls, painting everything. And that's what it is. And we just need the special use permit before the purchase to go through.
All right. Any comments or questions from staff? My only comment or question is, will you be keeping the curb cut to drive into the space?
I have always requested that we have it as a loading zone. We are doing curbside pickups right now for the daycare, and we're going to continue doing that. So we're fine to do it the way it is. But once I have the whole entire building, I just like to make it as a loading zone so people can come in and come out.
I guess Public Works, what do you think? I mean, I think the issue is, do you need the grade to be at grade so cars can cross the sidewalk versus loading zone is one thing from a parking perspective, but do we need, if cars aren't crossing the sidewalk, do we need those kinds of sidewalks that meet the street?
Oh, we're not planning on doing anything to the sidewalk.
You're not driving vehicles into the building
No.
anymore, right?
Nope.
Okay, so I think what I'm asking is, Public Works, do we need to, should the sidewalk ultimately be changed to a regular sidewalk?
If it's not going to, if the use is changing and they're not going to be using it in, yeah, I mean, we probably prefer it going to a regular sidewalk.
From a parking perspective, I would prefer that as well. We get a lot of complaints on that block, and we got Double Clutch getting ready to open, and there's quite a few residences on that block now. So I would prefer that we put sidewalks and created parking as opposed to having the driveway.
It sounds like though that, Mike, that they're interested in using it as a loading zone for pickup and drop off. And what I'm wondering is, the curb be back and a loading zone for pickup and drop off be specified at certain times of the day and then parking at other times of the day?
Yes, we've done that in other locations where we specified loading from 9 to 6 p.m. or something like that. We have a specified time right around the corner on Simpson in front of the place that provides the Meals on Wheels.
Oh, Soul and Smoke.
Excuse me?
Soul and Smoke.
No. The Meals on Wheels has a
got it.
time. Meals on Wheels has a time specific loading zone. It's like from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. or something like that. And then after 2 p.m., anybody can park in the spaces.
In our current policy, it's really uncommon for us to grant a business an individual loading zone on a public street. But if the property owner is willing to replace the curb and have a public sidewalk there, that instead of a driveway, a very long curb cut with driveway ramp into the building, I think that it would be feasible to work out a deal in which it's a loading zone during the hours that the doggy daycare needs it to be a loading zone, but that it can revert to public parking in the evening after drop off and pickup hours and at times in which the business is closed.
So once I own the property, then I'd be responsible for putting in the sidewalk that we're talking about?
But then in return,
So Kathy, we would think as a condition of your special use for the doggy daycare that you would, within a period of time, would have to restore the curb.
Okay.
To, engineering specifications, and that, we would work with you to create a parking plan / loading zone.
Okay.
So that would travel with the minutes and this. So that would be, because it can't. This is, if it's going to be treating, if it's not being used the way it was designed, we need to fix that, because we're going to it's not clear with parking or other illegal parking. I mean, we have to have proper enforcement of the street. So if the use is changing and you're changing the use, you're going to be responsible for changing the sidewalk.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I have one more question. So the lot to the south of the building, when you purchase the building, is that lot coming with it, or is there going to be any other spaces that you'd be able to use for employee parking or for pickup and loading of the animals?
No, I think that's Brilla's property. I think that's not connected to the building that I'm purchasing.
Okay, and you're not going to create any parking in any parts of the building at all? You're not going to use any of these overhead doors to provide parking spaces?
No, I'm not. Most of my staff takes public transportation, or they park in the lot down at the end of the street.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments? Otherwise, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for a positive recommendation to ZBA with the condition that the property owner, once the property is required, within 6 months, restores, I'll say within 12 months, restores the curb and the public sidewalk for the length of the property. And in return, we'll work with the city to develop when a loading zone is needed for their business. And it will be restricted to those hours as a loading zone, but that public parking will be allowed at other times when the business is closed.
Thank you.
Laura, could we include that to say 40 feet of loading zone?
Why don't we just leave it open to what we determine once we've studied the space, so we don't,
Okay.
yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Nyden,
Aye.
Gertis,
Aye.
Biggs,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Eckersberg,
Aye.
Vanetta,
Aye.
Tristan,
Aye.
Ike,
Aye.
and Jones.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. There is no other business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in, oh, thank you for the second, Jessica. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you. We're just on the note. We can get to our 3:30 now. See you there.
Thank you all.
Bye, Kathy. Thank you.
Aye.